Hi, how you doing? I got a book right here called The Miseducation of the Negro. Miseducation of the Negro. This new series, along with From Niggas to Gods, to alleviate what was going on and what's going on nowadays, and so forth and so on, and what's going on with the brothers and sisters out there, and so forth and so on. And this is another book that will give you an enlightenment to truth about the Negro and what they're going through and what society is doing to them. Right. This chapter 1 is the seat on the trouble. The seat on the trouble. The seat on the trouble. All right. The education of the Negro's attitude of a contempt towards their own people, because in their own as well as in their mixed schools, Negroes are taught to admire the Hebrew and Greek and Latin and their Teutons, and to despise the African. Of hundreds of Negro high schools recently examined by an expert in the United States Bureau of Investigations, Bureau of Education, only 18 offer a course taken up in the history of the Negro. And in most of the Negroes' colleges and universities where the Negro is thought of, the race is studied only as a problem or dismissed as of little consequences. For example, an officer of a Negro university thinking that an additional course on the Negro should be given there, called upon a Negro doctor of philosophy and philosophy of the facility to offer such work. He promotes information and he promotes inform the officer that he knew nothing about the Negro. He did not go to the school to waste his time that way. He went to be educated in a system which dismissed the Negro as a non-entity. At a Negro summer school 2 years ago, a white instructor gave a course on the Negro, using for his text a work which teaches that whites are superior to blacks. When asked why one of the students why he used such a textbook, the instructor replied that he wanted them to get that point of view. Even the schools for Negroes then are places where they must be convinced of their inferiority. The thought of the inferiority of the Negro is drilled into him in almost every class he enters and in almost every book he studies. If he happens to leave school after he masters the fundamentals before he finishes high school or reaches college, he will naturally escape some of this bias and may recover in time to be of service to his people. Practically all successful Negroes in the country are of the undereducated types, or of that of Negroes who have had no form of education at all. The large majority of Negroes who have put on the finishing touches of our best colleges are all but worthless in the development of their people. If after leaving school they have the opportunity to give out to Negroes, that traducers of the race which like to have it learned, such persons may thereby earn a living at teaching or preaching what they have been taught, but they never become a constructive force in the development of the race. The so-called school then becomes a questionable factor in the life of this despised people. As another has well said, the handicap of a student by teaching him that his black face is a curse and that his struggles to change his conditions is hopeless is the worst sort of lynching. It kills one aspiration and dooms him to vagabondage and crime. It is a strange thing that the friend of truth and the promoter of freedom have not risen up against the present propaganda in the school and crush it. This crusade is much more important than the anti-lynching movement, because there would be no lynching if it did not start in the schoolroom. Why not employ and why not exploit, enslave, or exterminate a class that everybody is taught to regard as inferior? To be more explicit, we may go to the seat of trouble. Our most widely known scholars have been trained in universities outside of the South, Northern and Western institutions, however, have had no time to deal with the matters which concerns the Negro especially. They must direct their attention to the problem of the majority of their constituents, and too often they have stimulated their prejudices by referring to the Negro as unworthy of consideration. Most of what these universities have often offered as language, mathematics, and science may have served a good purpose, but much of what they have taught as economics, history, and literature, and religion, and philosophy, and propaganda can't that involve a waste of time and misdirect the Negro thus trained. And even in the certitude of science or mathematics, it has been unfortunate that the approach to the Negro has been borrowed from a foreign method. For example, the teaching of arithmetic in the 5th grade in a backward county in Mississippi should mean one thing in the Negro school and decisively different thing in a white school. The Negro child, as a rule, comes from a home of tenants and poings who have to migrate annually from plantation to plantation, looking for lights which they have never seen. The children from the homes of white planters and merchants live prominently in the midst of calculation, family budget, and the likes, which enable them to sometimes learn more by contact than the Negro can acquire in school. Instead of teaching such Negro children less arithmetic, they should be taught much more of it than the white children, for the latter attend a grade school consolidated by free transportation. When Negroes go to one-room rented hovels to be taught without equipment and by incompetent teachers educated scarcely beyond the 8th grade. In school of theology, and Negroes are taught the interpretation of the Bible, worked out by those who have justified segregation and winked at the economic debasement of Negroes, sometimes almost to the point of starvation. Deriving their sense of right from the teaching, graduates of such schools can have no message to grip the people whom they have been ill-trained to serve. Most of such miseducation ministers therefore preach to bench, while illustrate Negro preachers do the best they can in supplying the spirit needs of the masses. In the schools of business and administration, Negroes are trained exclusively in the philosophy and the economics of Wall Street and are therefore made to despise the opportunities to run ice wagons and push banana cartons and sell peanuts among their own people. Foreigners who have not studied economics but have studied Negroes take up this business and grow rich. In schools journalism, Negroes are being taught how to edit such metropolitan dailies as the Children, the Chicago Tribune, and the New York Times, which would hardly hire a Negro as a janitor. And when these graduates come to the Negro Weekly for employment, they are not prepared to function in such establishments, which, to be successful, must build upon accurate knowledge of the psychology and the philosophy of the Negro. When a Negro has finished his education in our schools, then he has been equipped to begin the life of an Americanized, Europeanized white man. But before he steps from the thresholds of the alma mater, he is told by his teachers that he must go back to his own people from whom he has been estranged by a vision of ideals which in his disillusionment he will realize he cannot attain. He goes forth to play his part in life, but he must be both social and bisocial at the same time. While he is a part of the body politic, he is an additional to this, a member of a particular race to which he must restrict himself in all matters and social. While serving his country, he must serve within a specific group. While being a good American, he must above all things be a good Negro. And to perform this definite function, he must learn to stay in a Negro's place. For the arduous task of serving a race that thus handicaps, however, the Negro graduate has had little or no training at all. The people whom he has been ordered to serve has been belittled by his teachers to the extent that he can hardly find delight in undertaking what his education has led him to think is possible. Considering his race as blank in achievement, then he sets out to stimulate their imitation of others. The performance is kept up a while, but like any other effort at meaningless institutions, it results in failure. Facing this undesirable result, the highly educated Negro often grows sour. He becomes too pessimist to be constructive force and usually develops into a chronic fault finder or complaint at the bar of public opinion. Often when he sees that the fault lies at the door of the white oppressors whom he is afraid to attack, he turns upon the pioneers, Negroes, who is at work doing the best he can to extricate himself from the unconformed predicament. In this effort to imitate, however, these educated people are sincere, they hope to make the Negro conform quickly to the standards of the whites and thus remove the pretext for barriers between the races. They do not realize, however, that even if the Negro do successfully imitate the nothing new has thereby been accomplished. You simply have a large number of persons doing what others has been doing. The unusual gift of race has not thereby been developed. An unwilling world, therefore, continues to wonder what the Negro is good for. These educated people, however, decry any such thing as race consciousness. And in some respect, they are right. They do not like to hear such expressions as Negro letters, Negro poetry, African art, or thinking black. And roughly speaking, we must concede that such things do not exist. These things do not figure in the courses which they pursued in school. And why should they? Aren't we all Americans? Then whatever is American is as much the heritage of the Negro as of any other group in this country. The highly educated contend, moreover, that when a Negro emphasizes these things, he invites racial discrimination by recognizing such differences of the races. The thought that the Negro is one thing and the white man another is a stock and trade argument of the Caucasians to justify segregation. Why? Then should the Negro blame the white man for doing what he himself does? These highly educated Negroes, however, fail to see that it is not the Negro who takes this position. The white man forces him to do it, and to extricate himself therefrom, the Negro leader must deal with the situation, as to develop in a segregated group the power with which they can elevate themselves. The difference of races, moreover, is no evidence of superiority or of inferiority. This merely indicates that each race has certain gifts which the others do not possess. It is by development of these gifts that every race must justify its right to exist. Beautiful letter. Beautiful letter. I especially like the one with the educated Negro went up, got his education, got in the world, and had to abide by strange rules because, hey, at the end, he's still a Negro. And as simple as that. You know what I'm saying? This is Jeremiah YSRA'EL signing off. Take care. Oh, sorry again. Next chapter, chapter 2, is how we miss the mark.